Hello, and welcome to the posing room. And I thought I would do a little athlete review of Aimee's front pose from the New York Pro yesterday, because isn't it gorgeous? So obviously the New York Pro was yesterday. Aimee won. I really wanted to do like a full-on show review of all the posing routines and my favorite ones and stuff, but I was working and I couldn't watch the live feed. But this is stunning, and I wanted to walk through it and like the flow of her lines, which I love doing, and talk about some of like what she does and why she might do it. So let's get started. So first of all, her shoulder line, her top line, nice and straight, no shoulder dipping down. Obviously at this level we wouldn't want to see that anyway, but it's really strong, really beautiful. The outside of her delt lining up with the outside of her glute, perfect. The line going through the outside of her other delt goes through her knee, again really nice flow of the lines there. And then her center line, bang center. You can see already how this is starting to look symmetrical and looking really good, isn't it? And then the line from her through the crease of her delt lines up beautifully with the upper part of her glute, and the line going through her lat comes nicely through the top of her leg as well. Lovely hourglass figure. Now if you're new to my page, I draw these a lot and I talk about the flow of the lines. This is not like bikini science. The judges are not sat there drawing imaginary lines over your body. But what I always say is we are primitive creatures, and it's well known that the human brain is like programmed to pick up on aesthetics, patterns. It's always looking for lines, basically. So we want to make sure in your front pose, in your transition poses, in any poses, that those lines are really balanced. Those natural lines that the eye is going to be drawn down. So things like your lats, your glutes, your shoulders, the eye is going to be drawn to them, and the judges are just going to instinctively know if something is wrong, So I draw these on here just to show that. Now her foot placement, this is what I really wanted to talk about. So this is her unsupporting leg. So this foot here with the heel up in the front pose, this is unsupporting. You should have no weight on this at all. You should just be like lightly resting the ball of your foot on the floor here. That toe pointing side stage as it always should be. There's pretty much no variation in that at all. However, her supporting leg, this is the leg where all her weight is through. You can see she's sat on her glute. All that weight is going through that leg, and that toe is pointing towards the judges. Now, this is becoming more and more usual, like right up there in the, the higher echelons of the Pro League. Isa does it. Lisa, who took 4th place yesterday, you can see that she does it as well. And there's a good reason for it. But I would firstly like to caveat that mostly at the amateur level, like I hardly ever coach girls to do this. And that is due to musculature. Now, Aimee absolutely should do this because she is very muscly. She can get away with doing this, and the things that she loses by doing this, you don't even notice because she's got so much muscle, but she gains so much more from this as well. And I'm going to walk you through it. So why is she pointing that toe forwards? Well, Aimee is a very muscly athlete, and she's got very dense, muscly legs. So when you point that toe forwards, you're able to just make the width of that leg look a little bit smaller. It hides this kind of roundness to the quad that we see if she was side on, hides some of the hamstrings, makes it look a little bit smaller. Now she's still pushing the glute forwards, which is great, so she's still got a great glute profile, but she is showing a little bit less glute than she would say if she had her foot completely parallel to the judges, completely side on. But at this level, that doesn't matter. I'll go into this a little bit later in the video, but I also hardly ever coach girls to have both their feet parallel to the judges either, because although you can see the whole of the side of the glute. You also show all of the leg off. And most of us athletes, we don't want to see that either, because we're not that balanced in the amateur or, maybe even lower pro league. So somewhere in the middle, sort of 30 to 45 degree angle is sort of optimum for most people. Most people, if you're going to have both feet completely side on, it doesn't look great with your lines. It's a very amateur look, and I will walk you through that in a second. So she's pointing that toe forwards. It's hiding some of that quad, hiding some of the glute. She's got really, really great glutes, so we can still see a really good silhouette here. That's perfect. By having the toe forwards or slightly pointing like 30, 45 degrees on, your midsection will not be totally side on. We call it opening out a little bit in the midsection. What that means is, exposing a bit more of the front midsection. A long time ago, like coaches would say that was a bad thing. I think it's a really good thing to be opening out a little bit in your front pose these days. Opening out in your front pose hides, hopefully you don't have big chunky erectors, but I do, because I did a lot of powerlifting before I came to bikini. So it's going to hide, a really chunky lower back. It also, hides the side profile of the abs. Again, at this level, should have really good core control, and that should be all sucked in. At the amateur level, not everyone has achieved that level of core control yet. So it's a much safer bet to be a little bit less side on in your torso to the judges. And after all, this is not, figure. We're not looking for an X shape. It used to be about this impossibly tiny waist. I think we're kind of moving away from that a little bit. They talk a lot more now about the hourglass figure. I think it's a little bit softer around the middle now than it used to be. So to be opening out a tiny bit, not a bad thing at all. I do open out a tiny bit because I have rib flare as well. And again, I'll walk you through that in a second. But loving this pose so far. So what's she doing with her upper body? So her left side, she is pulling that shoulder back. Not the shoulder, it's a rotation of the upper body. So the whole upper rib cage is coming back to open out, expose a bit more of that delt, and obviously show off that lat a little bit. And then with the other shoulder, upper body, she's pushing that forward. So she's trying to show a little bit more of a front view of that top line, but again, without being completely squared onto the judges and like showing that X frame. The glute, she's pushing towards the judges, so even though she has that toe pointing forwards, she's pushing that glute round, so that leg is really, really twisting. I used to do this pose with my toe pointing forwards a little while ago. Like I said, I've now moved it around a little bit. When your toe is pointing forwards and you're pushing your glutes around at the same time, it really puts a lot of pressure on that leg. It's going to cause a little bit of problems probably with your quad muscles, so you're definitely going to have to be stretching, definitely going to be having to get body work done on that quad, otherwise you're going to end up with problems. It's going to put a lot of pressure on your knee as well to be pushing that leg round in two different directions. But beauty is pain, guys. This is what we do. And then the other side, she is pushing that leg towards the judges a little bit. So you don't want that knee to cave in towards the judges, but what you want to do, and what I talk to my girls about, is almost like squeeze your thighs together at the top, almost like you're holding a tennis ball between your legs, and that will really tighten up your core and allow you to push that glute towards the judges and push that right shoulder towards the judges as well. So I said I would explain the difference in toe position. So I, in between posing clients today, did a couple of different poses for you. So this first one here, I have got both feet parallel to the judges, both pointing offside stage. And like I said, I would rather not see most athletes doing this. You do see a lot of athletes doing this, and I personally, as a posing coach, feel like it looks like a very amateur pose when you do this. The benefits of doing it is obviously you can see a lot more leg. Like, it makes the leg look a lot more muscular. You can see more hamstring, you can see more quad pop. But I, in my 7 years of being a posing coach, have never ever heard the judges say, I want to see more hamstring in your front pose. I think, again, it's like quite an amateur mindset that people have. I've got to show every single thing in my front pose. I've got to show my hamstring, my quads, my calf, my entire glute, both shoulders, my waist completely side on to the judges. But actually, and I'll show you in a second, like, it sort of pushes the lines out of whack and it's not as balanced. You can probably look along these three now and go, yeah, doesn't quite look right, does it? So with both toes pointing side stage, obviously the lower half of your body is side on to the judges. We've got to bring the top half round. Most people don't have that level of rotation. I definitely don't. And what we often see is then one shoulder dropping in this pose. You can see as well, as I go through the lines, like, it's just not as symmetrical, as pleasing as Aimee's pose with this. Now, pointing the toe 45 degrees, you get a much straighter top line, and then you can already see these lines start to look just a little less messy. It looks a bit better, doesn't it? And can you also see with the glute side on, yeah, you get like a lot more glute profile. And when you turn the toe out, you lose a tiny bit, but it's not much. You lose a bit of like the lower half of the glute. To be honest, the judges are talking more these days about seeing a bit of upper glute pop in the front pose. I don't think that you lose a lot, if I'm honest. And actually, yeah, the lines look better. Like, the line going through the delt here, it doesn't match up with the glutes there, whereas it almost does with the foot at 45 degrees. And then with the foot forwards, again, all the lines look a lot crisper than with both feet sideways. But what you can see is with that foot forwards, the leg looks a lot smaller, right? It's not as wide as, say, this one, but I think this is out of balance. It's not as wide as this one, but this looks a lot more balanced top to bottom. It makes the leg look a lot smaller. So as I was saying, if you don't have the musculature, you don't want to have this toe pointing all the way forwards. It also makes the glute look a little bit smaller. So if you don't have the glutes, again, you wouldn't have that toe completely pointing forward. All in all, I would say this is the safest bet. 45 degrees, 30 degrees if you don't have amazing glutes, and that'll just make everything look a lot crisper. So when I turn it into a silhouette, you can see things a little better here. This definitely looks a lot more pleasing than this one. You can see I'm showing rib flare here. You can see a little bit of my ab bulge here. My lower back just looks a little bit wider down here. This is a lot tighter. It's presenting more of an hourglass tidy frame, as does this, but obviously slightly smaller glute profile, slightly smaller leg. That was a lot to get through. I struggled with it. I hope that helps you understand like the differences in front poses. Any questions, drop me a message. Thanks for listening.